Now in this video, I'm going to give you a bit of an assignment here, but I'm going to give you some direction to go with first. So think back when we originally used a gizmo in our game. We used the onDrawGizmos method. We used that to show a little circle at the player's feet to show where he was going to use for a ground check. So now what we want to do is use that to display the waypoints in our moving platform. So to get you started, let's open our platform and open the moving platform script. Now we go to the bottom and we want to use a method like we did before. So it's onDrawGizmos. Now feel free to use anything you need for a reference. So there's the Unity help documents, the scripting reference. You could even do other YouTube searches or Googling. So I just want you to get in the practice a bit of trying to find the answer on your own of how to resolve this before I walk you through the process. So now I'm going to make some comments here just to give you the points of what we want to do. So we need to go through and we want to draw a circle at the position of each waypoint. So let's do that. So let's draw a circle, or actually it's a sphere at each waypoint so we can see it in the scene. So that's the first thing we need to do. So to be able to do that, you're going to need to make a loop. So we can add that note here too. Make a loop to draw a sphere at each waypoint. So that's the first thing we want to do. And then we want to do a line to connect each of the waypoints. So this gets a bit trickier. So we need to do this in a loop as well. And I'm just going to make a comment here. You can do it in the same loop. So you only need one loop to do this. So I'll put something inside the same loop. Draw a line between each waypoint. Okay, so this one gets a bit tricky. There is a few things you have to watch out for here. So don't try to do all of this at once. Do it step by step. So the easiest way is how I lined here, to draw the spheres first for each waypoint. Make sure that's working. Oh, and typo here. And then once that's working, then start working on drawing a line between each of those positions. Now you can find all of this in the scripting reference. So if you don't want any more hints and you want to try it on your own right now, just pause where we're at. But if you need a bit more of a hint, I'm going to show you a few of the commands here just so you have them. Okay, so if you need them, it's kind of a refresher. We did a bit of this before, but you can set the color by using gizmos.color equals color and then the color type or name. Then we have gizmos.drawSphere. So even with the extra hints, I'm going to leave it to you to figure out what has to go in there. And then the other one we have is gizmos.drawLine. And same thing, you're going to have to check on the syntax and find out how to work that yourself. But these are the three different things inside the Gizmos class that we need to do this. Okay, so give that a try and I'll show you how to accomplish it in the next video. Good luck. Okay, so I hope you were able to complete that or at least get part of it working on your own. But if you had any problems or you weren't able to at all, no worries. I'm going to show you how we do it here right now. So let's just go in here and we're going to work this step by step, like I said. So a lot of the times I really like making notes using comments of exactly what I need to do. So first I'm going to do that. I'm going to make a loop to go through all of the waypoints. And what you could do if you're making a loop, when you're commenting, you can indent them with tab just so you know what's inside that loop. So this is kind of, a lot of the times you call this pseudocode, where you're kind of making almost like the code, but in human words. And then you go and you replace it with the actual code after. So this is very helpful for blocking out how you're going to process something before you know how to program it. Then what I'm going to do is I want to set a color. Then I want to draw a sphere where the waypoint is. Then I'm going to set another color. And then I'm going to want to draw a line between this waypoint and the next. Okay, so all of that is inside one loop. So let's start making that. So the first thing I got to do is I'm going to use the for loop that we used before. I'm going to do int I equals 0. So that's the variable we use as our counter. And then for I, we want to check if it's less than waypoints.length. And we don't have to -1 off this because we're starting at 0. So it's going to match up with our length exactly. And then we need to increment I. So if you don't remember how for loops work here, feel free to take a look at the reference video of where we used loops. And just make sure you understand how that works. So now all of this goes inside my loop. Whoops. Okay, so first thing, we use gizmos.color. And I'm just going to make the color of the spheres blue. Actually, we'll do blue. Okay, and now we need to draw a sphere. So the autocomplete helps us a lot here. If we use gizmos.drawSphere, and then we just look at it here. So we need a center position and then a radius. So for the position, just like we used up here, all we have to do is waypoints. And then use our index from the loop, which is I. So we want that dot position. And then we need a size. So I'm just going to try maybe like 0.25 here. Okay, so let's go and try this out first before we do any more programming. And I only have one dot for some reason. Well, it looks like in my script I lost all my waypoints here. So if you had anything like that, we can change the number here if we want to go up to 4. But if it's set to 1 like this, another little trick is we can just select the waypoint. So the next one's waypoint 1. I can just drag it on and it's going to extend that array. Okay, so waypoint 2 and then waypoint 3. Okay, so we have them and now we see a dot where each of our waypoints is. So that's working. The one thing we notice is our platform, the pivot of it is on the far left side. So for a system like this, we're probably going to want to change that to the middle. So I'm going to show you how to do that after we get this working. Well, let's go back to our script. So that's working now. So next thing, I want to set another color. So for the line, I'm going to do blue. So let's do gizmos.color equals color.blue. And now what we got to do is we got to take this same waypoint position of I and draw a line between that and the next one. So we can use gizmos.drawLine. Now if we look at it, it's got vector 3 from and vector 3 to. So basically we just need to give it 2 points and it's going to draw a line between them. So we can copy this one. And then for the second one, we can just do I plus 1, which will be the next waypoint. Okay, so we can do this, but there is a problem here. So if we go back into our script, we do get the line and it's working now. But if we look at our console, we're getting an error that the index was out of the bounds. This is what we talked about in the last few videos, where if you try to access something outside the array, you're going to get an error. So basically what's happening is when we hit the last waypoint, we're trying to draw a line from that to the next one. And there is no next one. So what we need to do is an if statement to check if we're at the last waypoint. And that's actually quite easy. We can just do if I is less than waypoints.length minus 1. And now the reason we need to do minus 1 here is we want to make sure there's at least one more waypoint yet. So if we check just the length, we would be at the last waypoint. If we minus 1 from it, that means we're at the second last waypoint. So this condition is only going to run as long as there's one more waypoint at least after this one. So let's save this. If we go back in, our error should be gone now. Okay, and we have a line between each of our waypoints. Okay, so now if we run the game, you won't see this in our game itself. So you won't see it in this window. But if we look on the scene, we can actually see a system. And now if I pick any waypoint, even while the game's running, you can see it automatically draws these lines and corrects where they are. So the last thing we want to do is let's set this where it's going to work on the center of our platform. So now when we look at our platform here, the actual platform, which is a child of moving platform, this is at position 0. So we could move it to be at the center, but the problem here is once we start running our script moves this object. So it's automatically going to snap right back to where it should be. So if we run the game now, watch. See, it goes right back to working off that pivot. So what we need to do is keep the game object itself, the platform, where it is, but all of these sprites, we need to just shift them over a bit. So we want it to basically be like this. So let's move our platform back to 0. Now the first one, if we look, our platform is 5 units. So basically we need to move it 2 units to the left. So if we highlight all of these and we move it over, we basically need to move it about that far. So I'm just going to Control Z to undo that. I'm going to select the first one. And what we can do in here is we can change these positions. So I'm going to set this to -2. That moves it 2 units over. Now when we select the next one, one thing you can do inside the transform here, when you're typing numbers, you can do math formulas right in here. So in this case, it's very simple because the number 1 is easy to do math on. But say if this was a really complex long number and we wanted to do a calculation, we can just type it in here. So I can add -2 and it's going to work that out and correct it to -1. And then if I select the next one, so this one here, if I put a -2 beside it, now it's 0. So this can get very handy when you're working with large numbers and you don't want to do the math every time. Okay, so we're just moving each of these over 2 units. And now if we go back to the platform, we just have to do the same with the collider. So if we look here, we have an X value. We can just do -2, and now it's right back. So now you can see if we select our platform, it's still at position 0. So once we start moving it in code, it's not going to affect that at all. So let's try running this now. You should see the platform will go to the center every time. Okay, so there we go. Now we have a little gizmo system for our moving platform, and we could add these into our game anywhere that we want. I will see you in the next video.